Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. You know, I'll be blunt and say it. If this week didn't have The Voice, the charts would be significantly less interesting to talk about. And I've actually took some of you up on your suggestions, just avoid covering hits from The Voice entirely. It'd actually be a pretty short week. But considering this was another deceptive week where things didn't appear to be all that interesting outside of it thanks to holiday slowdown, and when you think about it, they weren't as interesting as weeks that were this deceptive before, I might as well discuss this in more detail. It's not like the other new entries appeared that much better, except for one big surprise. Of course, a big part of that is the continued stasis of our top 10. I suspect things will be disrupted more next week. For now, though, nothing much is changing. One thing to note is that Hello by Adele might be reaching the end of its run at number 1, as airplay finally peaked this week, and while it still holds the top in sales on YouTube, it's actually slipping on streaming, which is never a good sign. I suspect Sorry by Justin Bieber at number 2 will be the one to replace it. Solid sales, continuing gains on airplay, absolutely dominating streaming, and very close on YouTube. It's gonna be a tight race here next week. What isn't remotely close, again, is Hotline Bling by Drake at number 3, because while it's holding steady on streaming and YouTube, it spent the week losing airplay and the sales were kinda soft. It's definitely vulnerable to Love Yourself by Justin Bieber sneaking up to number 4. Thanks to streaming gains, very strong sales, and airplay and YouTube finally starting to catch up. It trades spots with What Do You Mean by Justin Bieber slipping down to number 5, but you know, that might have happened anyway, with streaming and YouTube propping up some drooping airplay and painfully weak sales. I'd argue it's also kind of vulnerable to a challenge, in this case from Same Old Love by Selena Gomez, who jumped up to number 6 on streaming and on sales gains, but the biggest gains were on the radio, where she made a lot of impact this week. Now granted, she might have gone up to the position regardless, because The Hills by The Weeknd slipped down to number 7 on a really haphazard week, with weak sales and sliding airplay in YouTube somehow compensated for by streaming gains, where it actually landed a little bit of traction there. What managed to hold steady was Here by Alessia Cara at number 8, which seems to be wavering a little bit. Gains on airplay, but tough sales and sliding streaming are not a good sign. It might not hold steady for long. It was even worse for Stitches by Shawn Mendes, falling down to number 9, as it lost on all categories. And finally, we've got Like I'm Gonna Lose You by Meghan Trainor and John Legend, which had a fairly mild week. Modest gains across the board. I don't see it going much higher, but I suspect this will probably end up sticking around for a few more weeks. What won't be sticking around are our losers and dropouts. We're actually fairly quiet this week beyond the expected. In the latter case, we only had 2 big ones. Renegades by Ex-Ambassadors finally completing its chart run, and Liquor by Chris Brown finally sputtering out. And that failing momentum does characterize a fair few songs that lost traction this week. Most notably, Lay It All On Me by Rudimental featuring Ed Sheeran stumbling down to 75, Used to Love You by Gwen Stefani dipping down to 67, and Rachel Platt's Stand By You abruptly sliding down to 77. I honestly thought it'd have more life around this time of the year. The next few, they were on their way out naturally, with Downtown by Macklemore, Ryan Lewis, and collaborators falling down to 89, and Country Radio continuing to clear out the benches, with Smoke Break with Carrie Underwood sliding down to 97, and Nothing Like You by Dan Shay hitting 85. Then we've got our regularly scheduled Bieber losses. The majority of his tracks are gone from the charts, so we only have the 2 losses, with Purpose falling down to 100 and The Feeling with Halsey sliding down to 82. Now finally, and I want to make special note of this, the cover of Somebody to Love by Jordan Smith fell down to 99 this week. And this is actually noteworthy because it's rare these songs have staying power beyond just 1 week on the charts at all. This isn't pretty impressive if he stuck around this long. I'll agree he did a great job with the song, it makes sense, but it's just interesting to note in passing. What's also interesting to note, and very telling about the typical holiday slowdown, we had precisely 0 returning entries this week. Doesn't look like the charts are going to start reloading before the new year, so we're stuck with a pretty modest collection of gains here. And really, it's kinda hit and miss. Yes, it's dispiriting to see One Call Away by Charlie Puth rise to 60, and Down the DM by Yo Gotti go up to 57, but then again, if in return we get Adele's When We Were Young surging up to 55, that's a win, at least for me. The other gains are reasonably understandable. Cake by the Ocean by DNCE goes up to 47 because people are desperately thinking about Tropical Escape. Burning House by Cam rise up to 29 thanks to our debut album actually being pretty damn good. And Selena Gomez's Ode to Groping, Hands to Myself, goes up to 62 off its debut last week, and because Selena's got a surprising amount of momentum right now, especially considering how lackluster that last album is. That is a bit surprising for me. Regardless, it's time we talk about our new arrivals, starting with number 98, Hollow by Tori Kelly. You know, of all the artists set to make a big splash in 2015, I'm a little bit surprised that Tori Kelly didn't do better. Yeah, I wasn't interested enough to cover her new album. There were a lot of big releases around that time, just sort of lost track of it. And it seems like the charts did the exact same thing, with every boost she got quickly fading out of memory. I can see this happening with this song too, but honestly, it might be one of her better performances to date. Yeah, it's not like we haven't heard reverb-saturated piano ballads over thicker percussion this year, as we're over half the pop albums I covered this year fell in that mold, but Tori Kelly's vocal delivery shows more poise and power and control without being overstated. Where things kind of go off the rails are in the lyrics, and the first thing to know is that many of the feeling hollow and fill my cup references, I was expecting this track to be all about sex. I mean, that's the most logical, symbolic conclusion, but I later discovered that Tori Kelly was indeed singing about love, except it was of the Jesus. Yeah, this is a very religious song, which kind of fits the very chaste delivery in the video, but look, I remember when Madonna made Like a Prayer, and it wasn't that more overt than this song is. But you know what, with all that in mind, the charts are not typically kind of anything even nominally Christian, so I wouldn't expect this to be a hit. Just saying. Number 95, Sorry Not Sorry by Bryson Tiller.
Special, but you don't mean nothing to me. Girl, I'm sorry you not the one for me. Just be honest, girl, what you want from me? This ain't nothing new, keep it so 100. I can't let none of these niggas get one up on me. I go back, I tell you, you better run from me.
So on the other side of the morality spectrum, we've got Bryson Tiller, who seems to be charting as many songs as possible playing his Chris Brown-Drake combination of being a total asshole. Now, initially Sorry Not Sorry actually seemed a little bit promising. The Street Fighter sample was a nifty choice against the bleak synth line and drill-like percussion. It actually had some momentum to it. It seemed nasty enough to fit for an anti-Gold Digger song. And you know, I'll give Bryson Tiller credit for not playing the track as a whiny revenge fantasy. And while his content on the song isn't stellar or anything all that new or original, his assertion that he only wants to be girls who have their own money is respectable to say the least, especially when this girl is cheating on her boyfriend to go for Bryson Tiller now that he's famous. Now, all of that would have worked until we get to the final verse, where he decides that he's gonna nail her anyway, but she's not gonna get any money from him now. So, congratulations, Bryson Tiller, for continuing to reinforce my impression of you. Ugh. Number 90, God Only Knows by Jordan Smith and Adam Levine.
As long as there are stars above you, you'll never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you.
Okay, let's establish right out of the gate that coach-contestant team-up songs on The Voice are basically a crapshoot when it comes to quality, and especially when it comes to Adam Levine, who can't possibly bear to be out of the spotlight. Not only that, the choice of God Only Knows by the Beach Boys is a bit of an odd one. The Voice likes very showy performances, and God Only Knows is very restrained and kind of quirky and features a lot of subtle harmonies. I say all that because they really kind of nailed it. The backing instrumentation is the closest the show will ever come to mimicking Brian Wilson's brilliant composition, and Jordan Smith and Adam Levine really do show a lot of restraint and chemistry. If I were to point out a flaw, it'd be in the vocal volume. As usual, Adam Levine is turned up higher than Jordan Smith, and he kind of ends up dominating more of the song than he should. The balance is really quite uneven here. But outside of that, this is a damn good cover that I really did like. Definitely recommend it. Number 86, Good to Be Alive, Hallelujah by Andy Grammer. Now, I'll be talking more about Andy Grammer soon when I put together my year-end list. Yes, they're coming, but I'm a little bit surprised this took so long to get to the charts, especially considering how successful Honey I'm Good was. It's also a song that completely confirms my majority of suspicions about this guy, namely that he's the sort of straightforward, uncomplicated male pop star that calls back to a very different time, most notably the 50s and early 60s, with a ton of energy and a very earnest smile. And that's pretty much all that this song is. He's been grinding out for a long time, he finally found success, and he's just happy about it. Now that said, the biggest turnoff about Andy Grammer is that his energy can feel a little bit too full force, especially considering so much of the instrumentation is trying to call back to all that gospel swell with the organ and the backing choir, and that can be a very jarring shift to then drop into a very percussion and bass heavy chorus, and might be a little bit too dark for the rest of the song, a little bit too swamped out. I mean, I can appreciate the energy and sincerity, but it's also quite an exhausting listen, and not one that I'm completely on board with, I'm being honest. It's a good song, but he's definitely done better. Number 72, Climb Mary Mountain by Jordan Smith.
Search high and low, follow every byway,
Okay, big confession time. I actually like The Sound of Music a lot. I grew up with it. It's actually held up surprisingly well upon revisiting it. It's generally a pretty powerful film anchored on some great performances with some iconic songs. Climb Every Mountain is not one of them, at least for me. I mean, he's got power, but to me it's a lesser track of the score, especially considering how incredibly strong and iconic that score is. That being said, while I don't really care about the song, Jordan Smith does absolutely kill it. He's a vocal powerhouse, the song plays to his strengths, and the backing orchestration does a really good job making it have a lot of impact. I think if I appreciated the song more, if I actually cared about the composition, but as it is, this is good. I'll take it. Number 69, You Should Be Here by Cole Swindell.
All over it. And you know that if I had just one wish, it'd be that you didn't have to miss this. You should be here.
Now, one of the things I'm both eagerly anticipating and yet kind of dreading is the upcoming next releases from bro country artists. I expect it's going to hit some of them way harder than others. Now, I couldn't stand Cole Swindell's self-titled debut album for being badly produced and painfully bland, but I did suspect not having a lot of personality might lead to an easy pivot to the rest of mainstream country. And the instrumentation, that's certainly true about this song. Although, to give him credit, it's easily better produced than most Cole Swindell songs. The reverb-touched piano and percussion tones against a spacey backing guitar that actually sounds pretty damn good. It's still pretty thin, all things considered, and I do wish the melody had a little bit more body to it, but that's not really why this song works. That comes in the songwriting, where you could easily say that Cole Swindell hasn't evolved much beyond your typical bro archetypes, except this song is framed as a tribute to his late father, who passed away just after he got signed. And there's an emotional core and well-framed authenticity to the writing that really gives this song a shocking amount of punch, more than anything Cole Swindell has ever done. In other words, yeah, this actually hit me pretty hard. This got to me. In other words, this is a pretty damn great song. Congratulations, Cole Swindell. This was enough to get me to check out your next album, and I'm genuinely sorry for your loss, but you turned it into a pretty damn great piece of music. I'll give you that. Number 64, Back to Sleep by Chris Brown.
Fuck you back to sleep, girl. Don't say a word, no, girl, don't you talk. Oh, yeah. Just hold on tight to me, girl. Fuck you back to sleep, girl. Rock you back.
So after that very heavy moment, let's talk about a loss that didn't nearly hit me as hard, Chris Brown's career. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of requests to cover royalty, and I'll be blunt. Not only do I not have time before the end of the year, I already covered Chris Brown once with Tyga and Fan of a Fan the album, and I've got zero interest in doing it again. And with Back to Sleep, yeah, okay, I'm continuing with that policy, because this song does nothing for me. Yeah, it's better than some of his recent singles, still slathered in gratuitous autotune with vocals layered so heavily, you can barely make out some of the glossy synths and sparse beat, but at least it's trying to be a little bit more romantic. I'll give him that, but I'm sorry. The entire premise of the song is for Chris Brown to come in extremely late and fuck you back to sleep, to bang her into unconsciousness. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with that. This song plays itself so broad that I don't find anything sensual that can possibly redeem the bluntness of that chorus statement, and that's the hook. You can't really get around it. In other words, yeah, okay, it's definitely not for me here. If you like it, good for you, but no. Number 56, Burning House by Emily Ann Roberts.
I've been sleepwalking too close to the fire, but it's the only place that I can hold you tight in this burning house.
So I can imagine part of the reason that Cam got such a huge boost for her version of the song was thanks to the additional help with the voice, giving the composition a little bit more airtime thanks to the runner-up finalist. And look, while it's a good song, it's not a good song when I can see more personality from Cam than Emily Ann Roberts, who is a pretty singer with good pipes, and with the inclusion of a slightly more full backing orchestration, she does get some power here, but I'm not exactly enthralled by this. I can see why she snagged the runner-up spot, but overall, I think I'm actually going to take the original. I think the more stripped-back presentation just works a little better for me. Decent enough, though. I guess I'll take it. And finally, number 24, Mary Did You Know by Jordan Smith.
Has come to make you new, and this child that you've delivered will soon deliver you.
Okay, I don't think anybody was remotely surprised that Jordan Swift won The Voice. But now that we're at the end of it, I don't really have a strong opinion on him. He's an incredible vocal talent, but nothing that really grabbed me more deeply, which makes him performing a pretty good Christmas song kind of ambivalent for me, I'll confess that. I mean, I'm heartily sick of Christmas music right now for a while, and even though, again, Jordan Smith kills this song, it really doesn't raise much more of a response from me. The orchestration is good, and Jordan has a little bit more control in his gospel runs and doesn't overindulge. It's a fine cover, but when you have him covering God Only Knows this week, that's what actually stands out. Sorry. So now that takes us to the best and the worst of the week, and I'll be honest, I'm a little bit thrown by my own choices here. I didn't expect this. Sure, God Only Knows by Jordan Smith and Adam Levine is gonna take my honorable mention, but the best, it's gonna go to You Should Be There by Cole Swindell, which hit me way harder than I expected and shows genuine promise. Not too proud to admit that. It's actually a really good song. The worst, though, okay, honestly, this week was pretty damn solid. But the worst is going to Sorry Not Sorry by Bryson Tiller for just getting on my nerves. But dishonorable mention going to Back to Sleep by Chris Brown, because while it is an asinine concept for a romantic song, he's at least the genuine article. I'll give him that over Bryson Tiller. In any case, Billboard Breakdown will resume after the Christmas as scheduled. So if you're watching this, I'm Mark. You've been watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse. Have a happy holidays, and I'll see